For 30 years, Samuel Gallagher had believed he was a devoted and caring husband. His marriage to Stella had seemed to be built on a solid foundation of love, trust, and unwavering support. Together, they had weathered life's challenges, the heartbreaking loss of their young son Oliver at just 5 years old, the financial hardships that followed, and countless smaller struggles. Through it all, Samuel had been her rock, just as she had been his. But everything changed the day Stella, trembling and tearful, confessed a truth she could no longer hide. Stella's revelation wasn't driven by passing unhappiness or a vague desire for change. She spoke of a deep emptiness within her, a longing to reignite a spark that had long since faded. She needed to feel alive again, to rekindle a fire dulled by the routine of their life together. Seeking comfort, she had opened up to their daughter Emma, whose bold and unconventional outlook on life had always set her apart. "You don't have to bury this, Mom," Emma had said, her voice a mix of empathy and candor. "You deserve to feel passionate about your life. Life is too short to quietly wish for more. Maybe it's time to do something daring." Stella had hesitated, unsure. "What do you mean?" "Maybe," Emma had replied nonchalantly, "you should have an affair, just for one night." The suggestion had stunned Stella. A whirlwind of guilt and curiosity stirred within her. The idea seemed absurd, foreign even, and yet, as the days passed, Emma's words lingered. The idea shifted in Stella's mind, not as a betrayal, but as a possible path to rediscover herself. Emma had even mentioned a neighbor, a widower named Nicholas. He had lost his wife to cancer years ago, and Stella had always found him kind and approachable. They had exchanged brief conversations, each carrying an unspoken connection. "Nick knows what it's like to lose someone," Emma had reassured her. "He's looking for companionship, too. He'll understand if it's just one night." Despite her hesitation one evening, Stella found herself standing at Nicholas's door. Her heart raced with a mix of fear and forbidden excitement. It was supposed to be an escape, a brief indulgence. Meanwhile, Samuel, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in his marriage, was preparing a surprise for Stella. His love for her remained unchanged, and he wanted to remind her of it. For months, he had been saving up to plan a romantic weekend getaway to a secluded mountain cabin. To him, it was the perfect opportunity to reconnect, to rekindle the bond they had once shared. He had even written her a heartfelt letter, pouring out his love and admiration in the hopes of reigniting the passion between them. That evening, as he carefully packed their bags and set aside a bottle of wine, his phone buzzed with a message. It was from Emma. "Mom's with Nicholas tonight. She's staying over at his house." The word struck Samuel like a lightning bolt, leaving him stunned. At first, he thought it must be a cruel joke. Stella, his Stella, could never do something so unimaginable. Desperate for clarity, he called Emma. His voice trembled with disbelief. "Is this some sick prank?" he demanded. Emma's tone was calm, almost detached. "Dad, maybe this is what she needs. It's just one night. It doesn't mean she doesn't love you." Samuel's heart pounded. Anger and heartbreak surged through him. How could you let this happen? How could you encourage her? If you had paid more attention to her needs, this wouldn't have happened. Emma's voice was sharp as she retorted, "Maybe if you had paid more attention to hers, this wouldn't have happened either." The call ended abruptly, leaving Samuel frozen in place, overwhelmed by a cascade of emotions. He felt betrayed, not just by Stella, but by Emma too. In an instant, the life he had carefully built seemed to shatter before him. As the hours dragged on, Samuel's grief slowly gave way to fury. Unable to sit still, he wandered into Stella's art studio, a space filled with the memories of their life together. Paintings from their travels, portraits of their children, and moments of happiness captured on canvas. One painting caught his eye, a depiction of them laughing together on a beach during their first vacation. It was a snapshot of simpler, joyful times. His hands trembled as he ripped the canvas off the wall and tossed it into a metal bin. Without hesitation, he set it alight, watching as the image burned to ash. One by one, he destroyed the relics of their life together, photographs, souvenirs, and tokens of love that now felt hollow. The studio filled with smoke and the harsh scent of charred memories. Samuel felt his identity dissolving, just as the remnants of his past crumbled away. When the destruction was over, he slumped into a chair, hollow and exhausted. His hand shook as he wrote a brief note on a piece of paper. "Stella, you've shattered my trust and broken my heart. I can't stay." Leaving the note behind, Samuel packed a small bag, grabbed his passport, and walked out of the house. But he wasn't ready to move on just yet. First, he drove to Nicholas's house. When Nicholas answered the door, Samuel said nothing. His fist collided with Nicholas's jaw in a swift, furious motion, sending the man crashing to the ground, stunned and bleeding. Without a word, Samuel turned and walked away. Driving through the night, a storm of emotions raged within him. Anger, sorrow, and betrayal mixed with an unexpected sense of liberation. He had no destination in mind, only a desperate need to escape. As dawn broke, Samuel found himself at a small airport. He thought of Costa Rica, a place he had always dreamed of visiting. It seemed like the perfect refuge, a chance to start anew far from the wreckage of his old life. As he boarded the plane, he resolved to find peace on his own terms, leaving behind the ghost of a love he thought would last forever. Using the last of his savings, Samuel bought a one-way ticket and flew to San Jose. There was no room for hesitation or second thoughts. Back home, the house he had left behind spiraled into chaos. The studio, once a haven for their shared dreams and artistic endeavors, now stood as a haunting reminder of lost ambitions. The acrid scent of smoke and burnt canvas lingered, a cruel testament to the events that had unfolded. When Stella returned, she found devastation waiting for her. The deliberate destruction of everything they had built together was a sharp and painful blow. But Samuel's actions didn't end with destruction. It was only the beginning of his quest to make her understand the emptiness that had consumed him. Leaving wasn't enough. He wanted her to confront the same desolation that had taken over his soul elsewhere. Stella woke up in Nicholas's bed, her thoughts clouded by guilt and confusion. She had always valued the sanctity of her marriage, never imagining she could betray Samuel. But in the quiet intimacy of Nicholas's apartment, she had found comfort in the attention Samuel no longer gave her. His gentle touch had reignited feelings of desire she thought were lost. In her mind, the affair was just a fleeting escape, an attempt to rekindle the spark within herself. But now, as she lay there, a heavy regret began to settle over her. Her phone vibrated on the nightstand. The message was from Emma. "Mom, I don't know how to say this, but Dad's gone. He took everything. The studio is destroyed. He's just gone." The word struck Stella like a blow to the chest. She bolted upright, her heart pounding. Samuel had vanished without a word, leaving only the wreckage of his wrath. Slowly, the pieces fell into place. This wasn't an impulsive act. It was a calculated move. As she pulled on her clothes, Stella left Nicholas's apartment without explanation. Driven by the urgency of the moment, Stella's thoughts raced as she drove home, the journey passing in a haze. The house stood in eerie silence when she arrived, a hollow shell of what it had once been. Dread twisted in her stomach as she stepped inside, the emptiness pressing down on her. When she entered the studio, the sight brought her to her knees. Her artwork, painstakingly created over the years, was reduced to ashes and charred fragments. The acrid stench of destruction filled her senses. Samuel had burned it all. This wasn't just an act of anger. It was a declaration, a ruthless proclamation of vengeance. As she stood amidst the ruins, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail from Emma, her voice thick with tears. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I never thought it would come to this. I thought you just needed something to feel alive again, but now everything's falling apart. Dad's gone and he left a letter. He's talking about starting over somewhere else. I don't know what to do. Please come home." Sharon's words hit Stella like a tidal wave, the weight of her choices crushing her. Her daughter's misguided encouragement had pushed Stella to betray the man who had once been the cornerstone of their family. What Sharon had seen as a way to help her mother rediscover joy had instead unraveled their lives entirely. Samuel's revenge extended far beyond the emotional realm. He had stripped Stella of everything. Their bank accounts were emptied. The house was in the process of being sold, and their retirement savings were gone. He had left her with nothing but debt and despair. Samuel had even taken steps to block Stella from accessing any shared assets, ensuring her financial ruin. Their marriage was over, leaving her with no safety net to cling to. Each day brought fresh reminders of her downfall. The affair, once a brief escape, now felt like a prison she had willingly entered. Forced to sell possessions just to get by, Stella's isolation deepened. Even Emma, unable to face the consequences of her involvement, grew distant, leaving Stella to confront her loneliness on her own. Meanwhile, Samuel's new life in Costa Rica unfolded in stark contrast. The lush landscapes and serene beaches became his sanctuary, a world far removed from the pain he had left behind. He found simple fulfillment teaching English at a local school, surrounded by kind people who knew nothing of his past. Over time, Samuel formed a bond with Elena, a woman whose vibrant spirit brought light into his life. She never pried into his history, and he never volunteered it. Their connection was uncomplicated, offering Samuel a reprieve from the weight of his past. For the first time in years, he felt genuine contentment, untethered from the shadows of betrayal. Yet, in quiet moments, his mind drifted to Stella. Would she ever truly understand the magnitude of what she had done? Would regret ever take root in her heart? But these questions no longer held power over him. Samuel had meticulously orchestrated her downfall, ensuring her pain mirrored his own. Her suffering, he knew, would last long after his departure. Even Emma, whose loyalty to Stella had severed their bond, was excluded from his new life. Her betrayal, in Samuel's eyes, was as unforgivable as her mother's. He had given them both chances to choose differently, but their choices had spoken volumes. Samuel had learned that forgiveness was not a given. It was earned. When respect and loyalty were absent, the only option was to walk away and reclaim one's worth. Bit by bit, Samuel rebuilt himself, casting off the remnants of his old life. He rediscovered his strength and inner peace. Stella, Emma, and the wreckage of his past were firmly behind him. The life he now lived, though far from what he had once envisioned, was entirely his own. For the first time, he felt whole. And in the end, that was all that truly mattered. End of story. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. May the Force be with you.